Let's go! Emery Jones, please commit. Look, last week we did a recruiting video where I listed Jacoby Mathews as the number one prospect for LSU to go get, and he committed the very next day. So I'm hoping that Emery Jones, my new number one uncommitted 2022 prospect, does the same thing. I want to actually take a look at some of his film, all right? So obviously, there is a lot we're going to get into today. I know that there's more highly ranked offensive line prospects out there, but let's first see what this Emery Jones kid is all about. And you see here, this is one thing you're going to see consistently from Emery Jones, is that he loves to finish his blocks. Look at this. Mow this young man down. Let's go. So one thing you'll see consistently, and this is something that the current LSU offensive line struggles with, is the ability to get to the second level and block linebackers cleanly. Now, something else you'll see on this tape is that the Division I defensive linemen, you don't quite see them on this clip. So, yes, Emery Jones is going up against some guys that he will likely not see on Alabama or Texas A&M, but I want you to see how quick he is on the second level. Boom! Look at that seal. Look at that. That's a bad seal. That's a really bad seal impersonation. But this is what I'm talking about, sealing this guy to the inside and forming a wall, and he did that exact thing right here. I'm loving it, Emery. I'm loving it. So here he is right here. So here we go. This looks like Terrell Lewis, right? And Courtney Upshaw and Jadeveon Clowney. Look at this. They have nothing compared to this young man. Just look at that. Huh? You didn't have to plan them. This is Walker High School. So Brian Thomas Jr. is on the other sideline, and he's like, oh, my God, I feel bad. I feel bad for Chad out there, or whatever that kid's name was, Brad. Or I don't know. That kid looks like a Tyler getting pancaked with extra syrup. But one thing I do see is this dude loves to finish blocks. Look at that. On Northwestern's field. So maybe this is a state championship game, maybe? I don't know. I know they played the state championship games. And look, just these pancakes are vicious. So, as you watch his tape here, you see that, there's a reason why he's a highly ranked prospect. He looks like a man amongst boys, and the clip is just absolutely amazing. Look at that. He just doesn't give up till the whistle. And, he's got a lot of respect with Walker Howard. I saw a photo from Mike Scarborough with the both of them. But you notice something here is, as he's getting to the second level, I believe this is one of the Osbury kids he put down. So this is actually a Division I prospect, and he didn't like it. This is Tyji Hill, I believe. He is a current LSU commit. So, there's some good defensive linemen he's going up against here. That was U-High in the last clip, and this is, of course, Edna Carr, and he's putting these guys into the ground. So, it's not just bad guys he's going up against here. And boom, we have merch. So before we look at the future of LSU's offensive line, I got to shout out Kevin, Tim, Jason, Cody, Jeremiah. Yeah. I never seen a Jeremy spelled like that. Byron and Randall, who actually bought 2 shirts. You know you want the first ever LSU merch shirt. Let's go! Or you can drop a Venmo Cash App if you want to support the Power Hour LSU movement. Let's get to it. Let's talk about Walker Howard. Let's go. So obviously, LSU national ranked number 2 class. And, there's not going to be a more important offensive lineman than Will Campbell, who's a 5-star, and then Jacoby, obviously. But you see here so far, and we'll get down here to Lucas Taylor, who's a really good 3-star guard out of Alabama. And then you also have Bo Borderline, who's an LSU legacy, a 3-star offensive tackle out of New Orleans. So, you see their rankings, and obviously Emery Jones is a higher-ranked prospect than them, but he's not quite at Will Campbell territory. The reason why, though, he is so important is because, LSU has struggled to get good offensive linemen out of state in recent seasons. Now, of course, you guys followed the Tristan Lee saga just like everyone else. And, knowing what we know now, I'm actually happy that Tristan Lee didn't go to LSU. But still, it was a miss. And, you did get Garrett Dellinger, but he was the only out-of-state 4-star offensive lineman that you got in the class. And then, from the year before, Marcus Dumerville was the only 4-star out-of-state offensive lineman you got. So what we need to do is understand two things. The first is LSU has not done the absolute best job of developing this position with the guys that they already have. Now, you guys, most of you watched our spring game film study, and the starters didn't really have the absolute best day. But what really concerned me were the backups. It was less than stellar. And remember, they were going up against other second stringers. So the depth still needs some replenishing, and that needs to get fixed right now. So the premium on offensive linemen is pretty high because, we need better backups. And while I hate playing true freshmen, Emery Jones, he might not be able to contribute in year one, but in year two, we're going to need him just based on numbers and just common sense. Because you look at these starters on the LSU offensive line, obviously a lot of them are seniors. And one more thing about the development of the LSU offensive line is, it's not just the fact that the backups weren't that great. It's that they would be starters right now had it not been for a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And because of that pandemic, that gave seniors an extra year of eligibility. So while we are happy that Liam Shanahan and the Ed Ingrams and the Austin Deculases were able to come back an extra season, in a normal circumstance, they wouldn't have been allowed to come back. But we're happy because we desperately need as many guys that have playing experience or guys that we can at the very least trust to be out on the field. Now, like I've said, none of these offensive linemen that LSU are going to start next season are, incredible. I mean, they're not Andrew Whitworths or Siren Blacks, but you don't need them to be. You just need them to be decent. And I don't know how many backups I would trust right now to play if we absolutely need them outside of a few guys. Obviously, Anthony Bradford, who might start over Jason Hines next season, and Cam Wire. That's it. So those 7 guys are the only 7 guys that I would feel comfortable about playing at all. Now, once again, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other guys that are on the roster cannot play down the road. But it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to, evaluate how offensive linemen are doing in practice or whatnot. But still, we should have more than 7 guys we should feel comfortable about putting on the field right now. And, I'll give 8 or 9 guys, maybe, but still, we need some help. We need some help in a major way. Now, Kimo McAneoly's coming in, a 3-star who was flipped from Florida State, and Garrett Dellinger's going to develop. And we've still yet to really see Marlon Martinez and Xavier Hill and maybe Kardell Thomas down the road, but we'll see. So, number 1 is out of any position on this team right now, the one position group on the current roster that I feel the worst about is the offensive line. And you guys watched our Max Johnson video earlier in the week. But the one position whose depth I worry about as well, which is kind of sort of a different issue, is also the offensive line. So this is the one huge screaming position of need. And then you factor on top of that the blue chip ratio, which is the amount of 4 and 5 stars you have based on your roster. LSU's offensive line blue chip ratio last season was 43%. So that means most of the guys on LSU's roster are 3-star offensive linemen or worse, which is fine. You can have 3-star offensive linemen be great, but you want more 4 and 5 stars. And obviously Emery Jones is a 4-star, and like we already mentioned, in our last few recruiting classes, we've only had one 4-star in each of those classes. So if Emery Jones were to commit, it would give us our second 4-star offensive lineman, which is a big position of need. Now, since we know what we know about that, let's take a look at the future. Here are the top prospects in the state of Louisiana in 2023. And obviously, we've done some content on some of these guys, but you notice out of the 8 guys here, none of them are not only offensive linemen, none of them are defensive linemen. So, Louisiana, it's not, necessarily a trench state. It's a wide receiver, defensive back type of state. That's what we're known for. But, there's no offensive lineman here for the class of 2023, which, of course, is the next recruiting class. So let's take a look at the top 247. There's going to be more players on this. So, we saw those 8 guys. Let's see if there's any offensive linemen here. And there is one defensive lineman, Tyler Bailey out of Ponchatoula High School. So, yes, of these set. Now, once again, it's still early, and there's guys that blossom late. It's offensive linemen, their bodies change. So these are the incoming juniors for the class of 2023, but not a single one of them of the top 17 guys in the 2023 class are from the state of Louisiana. Now, that could change. There could be, obviously, a kid that shoots up the ranking. It is still very early. But, that shows you what we've talked about in previous videos, that there's just not that many offensive linemen that the state produces. It's slim pickings. You tend to appreciate a guy like Austin Deculus a lot more because he was a top 50 guy out of the state of Texas, right? So is there a potential opportunity for the class of 2022 to get another offensive lineman not named Emery Jones? Let's take a look. I'm kind of liking the flashlight ad. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the top offensive guard recruits, and then we'll get to the tackles in just a second. Devon Campbell is a guy who has LSU listed in his top 8. He, of course, is a 5-star recruit. But you notice here, that there's obviously some of these guys that you could potentially see. A lot of them are in Texas, which obviously is an area that LSU will attack. You do see Lucas Taylor right here. He is the highest-rated 3-star offensive guard. And obviously, he's committed to LSU. We're very happy about that. But then, you see Emery Jones right here. Jalen Early is someone that's, interesting out of Duncanville. I know LSU tried to get into Duncanville last season, with Savion Byrd, who ended up going to Oklahoma, but LSU was close. So, yeah, you cross your fingers and maybe one of these guys actually, decides to go to LSU. So, let's go to offensive tackle here, OT. And obviously Zach Rice is the can't-miss offensive tackle in this class. I know LSU's been in contact. Same thing here with Kelvin Banks. And then you see Will Campbell here. Tyler Booker. You scroll down here and, you see a lot of crystal balls. Julian Armella is someone that I've seen attached to LSU. And you see Warm right here with James Craig. And obviously that would be, fantastic to get, a guy like this, 6'6", 300. My goodness. I can't imagine being 17 and walking around a high school campus being 6'6", 300. It's wild. This is someone I find pretty interesting as well. I watched a little bit of his huddle not too long ago. Riley Quick out of Hewitt Trustville. I know that name sounds familiar because that is where Armani Goodwin played his high school football. The LSU, it just depends on where these kids want to go. So, you look at these guys and, maybe you cross your fingers for Zach Rice and Kelvin Banks here. And obviously, you don't want them going to Texas A&M or Alabama. As long as they're not going there, Florida, you feel a little bit better. But we've struggled. We've struggled. The last out-of-state 5-star offensive lineman that LSU got was Maya Tuema in 2015, and he was a beast before, off the field stuff forced him to transfer. So, yeah, and, it doesn't necessarily even need to be a 5-star. Think about some of the great out-of-state offensive tackles. So we were talking about Austin Deculus. I know he's not the absolute best, but he's been a reliable starter. And then you think of guys like Toby Weathersby, another Texas offensive lineman that obviously, was a big hit. So, these out-of-state guys really do help out this offensive line. Can LSU get any one of these guys? Once again, it's so early in the process. Now, knowing the data that you know now and knowing that you got to see the film for yourself of Emery Jones, right? Let's actually discuss the practicality of this whole situation. The first is obviously LSU is not necessarily in an offensive line crisis, but if you compare it to other positions, LSU is pretty stacked at wide receiver for the future. They've got quite a few running backs for the future. Quarterback, LSU's never been in a better quarterback position with Walker Howard and that 2023 class, which is loaded with great Louisiana quarterbacks. On the defensive line, still pretty young at defensive tackle. At defensive end, you're pretty stacked. At linebacker, you're looking pretty good. Not the absolute best, but LSU is in the running to get some really good linebackers in this class. And then at defensive back, with Corey Raymond, you never really have to worry. 3 corners already committed, plus Jacoby Mathews. So this is the position of need. So is Emery Jones the highest rated prospect left on LSU's board? No. And he's not necessarily even the best prospect left on LSU's board. But he's a pretty big necessity. Knowing what we know about the class of 2023, once again, it's still early, but no elite offensive linemen have emerged in the state of Louisiana in the class of 2023. And knowing what we know about the current structure of this roster, you really need to get some more good offensive linemen, and Emery Jones certainly fits that bill. Boom! I know offensive line talk can get a little boring, but it was because we did the Jacoby Mathews warm-up video, and last week, when hey, we're in a target, you get the buzz that Jacoby Mathews actually committed, and we, of course, recorded the video. So hopefully tomorrow when I'm actually going to go, I kind of feel like, the Jacoby Mathews things was so huge, I kind of feel like driving to a target and just magically Emery Jones committing. Maybe I'll do that. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! So I want to include this. So obviously, this video, I really want Emery Jones to go to LSU, but I always say this. Kids, go where you want to go. Don't ever commit somewhere just because you feel like everyone is pressuring you to commit anywhere. Go wherever you want to go. I just want that to be out there. I think, God, dude, our Lo Mein place shut down. And I live in a small town, so, once you find some good lo mein, it's hard to find good lo mein. Lo mein.